McLaren's secret 2026 F1 car was just exposed in a massive FIA leak, and Oscar Piastri's name is stamped all over it. The images reveal radical systems, risky aero tricks, and hidden tech that might already break the 2026 rules. If this leak is legit, McLaren could face penalties, or worse, a total reset of their 2026 car before preseason even starts. This changes the game. Hit subscribe right now to stay ahead of every leak, scandal, and grid-shaking twist in Formula One. The Formula One paddock has been rocked by one of the most unexpected leaks in recent memory. A series of internal FIA images, confidential technical files never meant for public release, have surfaced online, revealing critical structural and aerodynamic details of McLaren's 2026 car. These aren't speculative renders or fan mock-ups. These are verified documents embedded with regulatory metadata, precise engineering coordinates, and internal coding that unmistakably link the designs to Oscar Piastri's development chassis. The kind of material teams guard with their lives now exposed for the world to see. In seconds, what was supposed to be months of secretive development has turned into a full-scale information breach. Every millimeter of carbon fiber contour, every cooling inlet, every underfloor detail, it's all out there. For McLaren, this is not just a tactical failure. It is a total collapse of secrecy, strategy, and timing at a moment when trust and control are everything. Because when you lose the element of surprise in Formula One, you're not just vulnerable, you're exposed, and the competition will waste no time circling. The leaked files appear to originate from a secure FIA compliance server, likely shared as part of the homologation preparation phase. That alone raises eyebrows, because these were not final designs. They were mid-cycle concepts still being tuned in CFD models and simulators. And yet, here they are. Visible to rival teams, fans, analysts, and compliance officials, all able to dissect, simulate, or challenge elements that hadn't even been tested on track. For McLaren, it's an engineering nightmare made public. And at the center of the storm is Oscar Piastri. His driver tag is stamped across multiple layers of the leaked blueprint, not as a generic placeholder, but as the designated lead for simulator calibration. This strongly suggests that what was leaked is not a generic prototype, but the car intended to shape his future in the post-2026 regulation era. That connection, unintentional or not, now puts both McLaren and Piastri in a politically vulnerable position, especially if the FIA begins asking why certain design elements appear to stretch or even bend the incoming rulebook. The FIA has yet to make an official statement, but multiple sources inside technical departments confirm that the images are authentic. This forces the governing body into an impossible corner: either acknowledge the breach and open a compliance review, or remain silent and appear negligent in the face of one of the biggest regulatory leaks in recent memory. For a sport already struggling to enforce consistent technical oversight, this leak puts the FIA's authority and McLaren's legal standing on a collision course. Behind the scenes, engineers at Woking are in crisis mode. Internal file permissions are being audited. Simulator configurations are being cross-checked against the leaked schematics. There's no time for politics, only damage control. Because even if McLaren hasn't broken a single rule, the perception of operating in the gray zone can lead to scrutiny, distraction, and penalties that derail development just when every hour of wind tunnel time counts. In a sport this fast, even standing still means falling behind. And now, the rest of the grid is watching. Red Bull's aero department will already be slicing through the images. Ferrari's compliance team will be cross-referencing line by line. Mercedes will be simulating airflow patterns by the end of the day. What McLaren lost wasn't just secrecy, it was their competitive edge. And if the FIA finds even one line of code, one duct, one winglet that shouldn't be there, the consequences could ripple through the entire 2026 campaign. The first element that jumps out in the leaked image is McLaren's ultra-aggressive side pod design. Unlike the more traditional box profile layouts used in recent years, this version carves in dramatically at the base, creating a deep undercut that appears tailored to accelerate airflow to the rear floor. This suggests McLaren is leaning heavily into a low-drag concept, where thermal efficiency is sacrificed for aerodynamic purity. The design may pay off on tracks with long straights, but the cooling compromises could spell trouble in hot weather Grands Prix or in dirty air situations. Even more revealing is the underfloor structure. The blueprint shows an evolution of the Venturi tunnel concept, but with far narrower channeling than expected under 2026 restrictions. There's also visible contour shaping along the floor's outer edges, hinting at vortex generation strategies that would re-energize airflow near the diffuser. These are the kind of tricks that helped teams master ground effect in 2022 and 2023, but under the tighter 2026 framework, even small floor flexing or edge shaping could trigger FIA intervention. This floor may push legality to its edge if not past it. Then there's the suspension layout. McLaren appears to be testing a hybrid design with a pull rod configuration on the front and a high-mounted pushrod at the rear. This unusual pairing aims to manage weight transfer and improve packaging space around the newly regulated power units. The mounting points also suggest the use of active damper logic, where the car's pitch and roll are controlled dynamically through software input. Under current rules, that's a fine line. If those systems are shown to adjust balance in real time without direct driver input, McLaren could be in violation. Perhaps the most surprising revelation is the placement of the energy recovery systems. Rather than mount the battery pack under the floor or behind the engine, the image shows it vertically stacked in the center spine of the chassis. This raises the car's center of gravity but significantly reduces lateral heat soak from surrounding components. It's a bold choice, one that favors reliability and structural safety over low CG performance. However, if not perfectly balanced, this design could lead to uneven energy distribution or braking instability, something Oscar Piastri reportedly felt during simulator runs. The cooling layout has drawn special attention. The leaked schematics reveal a two-loop thermal system, one circuit cooling the internal combustion unit and another dedicated to the MGUK and inverter systems. While this gives engineers better control over hybrid temperatures, it also demands extremely tight packaging. Under 2020 SIXS bodywork limitations, McLaren may be pushing airflow through duct paths that the FIA could classify as fluidic structures, an area under new regulatory review. If the cooling efficiency depends on any undeclared aerodynamic aid, it could be ruled illegal. Also visible in the diagram is an intriguing rear wing design. The upper element appears to be connected by a flexible bridge mount that allows micro-adjustments in lateral pressure. This might be McLaren's answer to the 2026 ban on active aero, achieving drag reduction passively through structural elasticity rather than mechanical movement. But the FIA has made clear that any aerodynamic surface that changes shape under load must behave in a predictable, linear manner. If this design introduces nonlinear airflow behavior, even unintentionally, it may not pass homologation. Finally, the telemetry and override modules located just behind the cockpit appear unusually exposed. These units are designed to monitor energy deployment and offer emergency shut-off logic. But the design shows a dual interface system, potentially allowing for mid-run adjustments or driver-specific calibration. If so, the FIA will demand exact documentation proving that no live performance tweaks are possible during a race. McLaren now has to prove not only that these systems are legal but that they're unexploitable. And in a season where transparency will define legality, that's a tall order. Inside McLaren's Woking facility, the fallout from the leak triggered an immediate shift from design to containment. What had been a steady, carefully controlled development pipeline for the 2026 car was abruptly frozen. Engineering leads halted all remote access to aero and power unit files, encrypted live projects, and diverted resources into an urgent internal audit. In a sport where milliseconds matter, entire departments have now been forced off performance work to clean up an information disaster. Aerodynamicists, perhaps the most exposed by the leak, now face the unenviable task of reverse engineering their own work but from the outside in. With the floor geometry, side pod concept, and underbody shaping now public, the question is not whether those designs are fast. It's whether they can be defended, legally and strategically. The FIA may demand clarification. Rivals may accuse McLaren of skirting rule interpretations. What was once internal innovation now sits on a knife edge, open to interpretation by competitors and compliance officials alike. In the structural engineering division, concerns are rising about the car's vertical battery orientation, clearly visible in the leaked blueprint. While the design may enhance thermal isolation and crash protection, it introduces fresh doubts about lateral stability and longitudinal balance under high-speed load transfers. Engineers had planned to validate these effects over the next 2 months. Now, those tests may be fast-tracked not because McLaren is ready, but because the FIA might request proof that the chassis won't deform beyond legal thresholds during dynamic stress. The compliance team has shifted from passive regulation tracking to full defensive protocol. Every system in the leaked image, from cooling ducts to electronic override ports, must now be accompanied by documentation. Legal files, software logs, energy recovery maps all must be ready to explain and justify what the world has already seen. That administrative burden doesn't just cost time. It creates political exposure. If McLaren can't show that these systems are already under compliance review, it opens the door to allegations of premature development beyond the regulation's intended spirit. Control systems engineers are now under acute pressure. The dual logic override units shown behind the cockpit may be designed for safety, but under 2020 SIXS stricter rules on driver influence and energy deployment, any ambiguity becomes a liability. The FIA will want to know if those systems can alter torque delivery or hybrid response without direct driver input. And even if the answer is no, the burden of proof lies with McLaren. Every line of code, every logic chain, every safety fallback all must be demonstrably inert during live race conditions. Meanwhile, McLaren's leadership team faces a different challenge: cohesion. Leaks damage morale. They fracture internal trust. Engineers begin to wonder who had access, who failed to encrypt, and whether internal security protocols were truly followed. Andrea Stella now has to manage not just the technical crisis, but the human one. A distracted team loses focus. A paranoid team loses speed. In Formula One, unity is leverage, and in the wake of a high-profile leak, even the smallest fracture can become a strategic collapse. And behind it all, the clock ticks louder than ever. Every day spent firefighting is a day not spent simulating, iterating, or validating. McLaren's competitors are watching, modeling, and preparing to adapt. The team's development window, once a competitive advantage, is now under siege. To regain control, McLaren must not only prove compliance. They must pivot, refocus, and deliver a revised version of this car that's both legal and untouchable. Because in 2026, the car that wins won't just be fast. It will be invisible until it hits the track. McLaren no longer has that privilege.